Wow, Lakshmi, we are finally here for Project Bolo. Great. Which year were you born? Were you born in Bombay or did you come here? And what was your family background like?
I was born in Maltibai Hospital in Thane near the station on 13th 1278, and of course my father had come to this city at the age of 16. He was thrown out of his house because he was notorious, and we come from eastern UP, Gorakhpur, from a Brahmin family, a well-known Brahmin family over there. I was the first male child of the family. I always think, touch wood, that I was a blessed child. I got things served in a silver bowl. I was always the pampered one when I was in 5th standard. One of my uncles, he said, why not let the child learn dancing? My daddy's first cousin. He was the only person who said the child should learn dancing. And then he convinced my father, my teachers convinced my father that your child has art and you should promote him. So my father took it seriously. He didn't oppose it, but he didn't appreciate it.
When did you first realize you are different? And what did you feel?
I don't even realize that many people ask me the same question. How did you realize? What did I realize? I was like that. I didn't have the time to realize. I grew up like that. I grew up like, wanting to put lipstick and, wrapping my mother's saris and, hunting down things. And later on, but I used to love men. I used to like elder men. I don't know why. In my school also, I used to like my senior boys. I still want to meet one of them. It's such a craving stuff. And I still remember that I found one of the guys who is one of a so-called far relative. We have talked and talked. As a very young child, I had talked with this handsome, young looking boy for hours in a marriage. We had these 3 days marriage ceremony in our, Barat aake 3 din rukti hai, that all system. And this boy was very close to me, and I don't know whether we did anything, but I was attracted, and I recently found him. I had the guts to ask my jijaji that this boy had come to your wedding, and I remember exactly what. And they were shocked how you could remember anybody at that age, what clothes he was wearing, how he looked, and blah blah. And he was from Lucknow. So this incident proved that I was there already. I didn't have to work a lot.
But what about people's reactions to you?
But people used to always call me homo, good mamu, chakka, hijra. And there are many places where my mother fought with people, like, how dare you call my child a hijra or bailya, the proper slangs. It remembered that wherever the word homo came, I went on reading those articles, dictionary, books, sitting in the library, what does homo means. And that time only one homosexual available was Ashok Rao Kavi. Oh my God, I still remember. So I told that time we had a car, and I told one of my drivers to drive me. Of course, I had a relation with the driver. He was handsome. And he drove me down till Maheshwari Garden, the Mecca and the Medina of our times.
Uh-huh. And how old were you then?
No, when I was in 4th standard, I gave my examinations and I was going to 5th standard. So at a very young childhood, I was a bitchy queen at a very young age. I meet Ashok and I tell, I like men's crotch. I sat with Ashok, but like a child I went on, and he was shocked. And he said, like, you're normal, you're studying, child. I said, yes. You should study. You like any hobbies? I am learning dance. You should study dance. Make your career and then you come, And Ashok became very close to my mother. But if it was not Ashok, the life would have been changed completely different.
Were there any places where you could meet others like you? I mean, you didn't know, right?
I found out through some sources, I don't even remember who. And I came to know Ashok and all these people meet at, all the so-called gay community meets at, and that time it was only gay. It was no koti, nothing, and it was ha sister, hello sister and all these things, and it was nothing, these political groups were not there. and that was the only garden, Maheshwari Garden, at King Circle, where everybody used to come those days, and meet Sunday. It was like a whole get together, and it was not more about cruising. It was meeting about people. Hi, tune kya kara? Hi, what did you do? And this and that. How many people did you cruise with whom you were doing what? So casually, as a child, I got to know these things. Bandra was a place where they used to go and cruise men. Bandra, then Bank Stand, were these places, and that time it was safe.
But why did they go there? Was it because of lack of queer safe spaces? And what was the reaction of people there?
People didn't have space till now, after so many years of everything and LGBTIH, whatever you term, the movement has grown so much in India. Still, where you have actual safe place for gay people to talk or to cruise, then now the problems have increased more. That time there were problems, but it was not seen so much. Or maybe I was very young and I was not aware of things, so I could not see through my lens, what was happening there. So for me, to go to Maheshwari Garden was a big thing in my life. After coming that, like I studied, then there were drag queen contests and all that, dress roughly as girl, drag queens. Oh my god. That concept came, and there were parties and there were contests. So I was a drag queen for 3 years, like the madam was there. And then, but one thing always happened very funny with me was wherever I went, for example, I went for the cruising place. In Thane, there was a cruising place, the ST stand of Thane. And wherever I used to go, and then the Talav Pali of Thane, there were gay men. I used to wear these hot pants, wear sarongs and, long t-shirts, kurta with huge dupattas, steel bangles, and put nose rings. And I still remember my favorite lipstick, as I started growing up, Personi 113 Moonless Night.
Lakshmi, what about your parents and people at home? Did they know?
Darling, at home, I was like, I used to still stay as a boy, but kurta and pajama is cool for any boy. It's such an Indian dress, and I was learning dance. And everything went, घर पे जाने के वक्त लिपस्टिक विपस्टिक तो पोंछ देते ना. You had a hiding place for all your things. So I did all these nakras.
So where would you hide them?
Under my cupboard and some places, or I used to use my sister's things and quietly give it to her. But I was quite smart.
At that time, did you have any identity? I mean, how did you identify yourself?
That time, at time I was a gay child, a gay boy. Then I became a drag queen, so I was a drag queen. And then, but every sector wherever I was, people said that I didn't belong to them. Suddenly my dancers started going for the shoots of Ken Ghosh video, and Ken Ghosh was that time the pioneer in making music albums. And that time I met Annabelle, and she, at Ken Ghosh shooting at Centaur Hotel, she thought I was a fashion designer, because that days I used to grow my nails, used to burn the candle and make holes in my nails and wear rings. Now they say it's nail art. But that time I used to do these things. There were no hair colors, I remember, in India. I used to bleach my hair to golden. Like I did all sorts of things. Like I was like there on the top, like I just wanted to be so different. And by that time I had become a real, like I didn't care. If you have problem, you have problem, I'm living my life, I'm enjoying. And one thing had become that time, there his music album had come out, and I was already on the silver screen. And once you're on silver screen, nobody wants to say what you are. Then you are an artist. So that exactly happened with me.
And when was the first time you met a Hijra?
I used to hate hijras. Clapping hands, stripping off. It didn't fit in my head, like how one could do so. And then I met Lawrence, now Shabina. She's doing her PhD from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Now she will be the first transgender woman or a Hijra woman doing her PhD in India. And yes, so I met her. And when I met her, she was working with me. We had wonderful time. And 98 she decided to have this organization, Thy Welfare Society, where Ashok and everybody supported a lot of work they did. And they were the Hijras who worked for Carenar. She told, now we are making an organization, blah, blah, blah. I told, any help so you need, you tell me. So knowing unknowingly, I became one of the board members of Thy Welfare Society.
Okay. Where did you go to visit the Hijra community?
I used to go to New Bhandup Sonapur. There were the Hijras who were into sex work, and that was the only place which I used to go. And those Hijras were really sweet. I knew they were in sex work and blah blah blah. But I was very young that time when I used to go to them. But they were always very motherly figure, and they used to always say, बेटा आप लोग जैसे हो ना पढ़ाई लिखाई करो, ये हिजड़ों में मतलब ये साड़ी में कुछ मज़ा नहीं है. And of course, but then who listens? We have to learn from our own end. But I'm really happy for what I am. I'm a Hijra and I'm proud of it.
So that's where you learnt all about the Hijra community?
Before meeting Shabina Lawrence, I have gone to Hijra communities. But I was not so comfortable with it. But Shabina told me that it's our culture. As I was telling, when we were going for 31st celebration to Ajeshwari, which is near in Thane district, hot springs are there, and it's a religious place, you see. So there, many people go for New Year, and then in the morning on the 1st of January, they go to the temple of Goddess Vajeshwari, which is a quite famous temple. So on the way, she told me everything about the community. And I was quite fascinated. I told them, you have a guru who is like a guardian. You have disciples who are like your children. Then she said me there are 7 families, and the 7 families have 7 heads, and blah blah blah. And then I said to her, ever if I join the Hijra community, you will be my guru, Shabina. But you don't have to behave with me like guru, you know. You'll behave like friends. And suddenly Shabina vanished. And I could not trace her. And I decided to be a part of the Hijra culture. So I alone went to the community. I asked one person, Ketan, and she told me that, you know, your house, Lashkar house, is on 2nd floor, and from there you have to, there are 7 families, no? And I belong to the Lashkar family. Shabina was from there. So I went and I met Lata Nayak, and I got initiated in the community. And I felt so proud of myself, being a part of a culture which is mine. But my other friends could not digest it. Then why the hell you have to go to the Hijra community, you know? They were like that.
Lakshmi, when did you first publicly come out and how?
Section 377 movement came into existence. And I still remember the first meeting at Press Club. I was speaking English. I was, as it is, quite with my full makeup, because I had this background of a dancer. So I used to always have makeup, my kajal, lipstick, perfect, you know. So the media caught attention, and some people went and asked Ashok, will she give a bite? And that time Z News was the only news channel available and very famous. And I gave the first interview on Z News saying that I'm a Hijra and da 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 da, our rights are our rights. And that's how my parents came to know that I was with the Hijra community. And it was not just right. It was not just right, because then my father became, and there was such an outbreak in the house. I told my younger brother, and my younger brother knew everything about me. And so even my sister's husband was also not happy, and you suddenly know how the whole atmosphere changes. पैसे दे दो उसको, business चालू करने को बोलो, you know, change his line, get him married, and you know. So it went all this till the level of getting me married off to a woman. Suddenly there were people coming in seeing me. I used to vanish off. I was like, what? I'm so young, you know, marriage and to a woman, yuck, it cannot be, just not right. So one day I told my daddy, Daddy, if you all force me to marry, I'll leave the house and run away. Otherwise, I'll castrate myself. That was a big statement. And from that day, my parents never said anything. But my father's mother said that you shouldn't come on television, you shouldn't come on newspaper. And you're not leaving the house and going. They could not expect that the child should go out of the house. And that showed that they're loving, they're caring, they're wanting for their own child, which is so rare.
And your parents have been supportive since then?
I still remember, one thing, Sridhar. My father said in a BBC radio interview that if my child, the Rupa Jha was a anchor, and she asked, "How do you feel about your child being a Hijra?" And after that, I really adored my father. He said that if my child was handicapped, would I throw, would I have had thrown him away from my house? And she said no, but because she said when nobody departs from their handicapped child, my child's sexuality is different, Laingikta is different. That's not a reason for him to be away from us or to be deprived by our love or by the ancestor property. My child is my child. And that was really touching. How many people have that guts to stand up with a Hijra child?
Mm, but wasn't it a big shift from being a gay man to being a hijra in your mind?
No, but it was not in my mind, but socially it did affect me. In my mind, I was clear. I was not gay. Gays are not so feminine what I was. I was not rather not drag queen, where like I wanted to be 24/7 like a woman. But then I was not a woman also, that I knew it very well. I still remember in the whole family, uh, had a meeting about me, and then everybody accusing my parents, you can't take care of a child, and da 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 da. It went on, and that all melodrama in my house. My mother stood up and she said, "Desi ghee ka laddu tera hi sahi." It's my child. देसी घी का लड्डू कोई फेंकता नहीं है, चाहे वो टेढ़ा बने या गोल बने. तो she said, मेरा बच्चा है, and it's my problem, not anybody's problem. Nobody has the right to. I have given birth to my child, I'll take care of my child. Why it has to be family's problem? And my father stood by my mother. And that went on. And that gave me a confidence, like, get lost. When my parents don't bother, why the hell? Whom I have to prove and whom I have to think about.
Did the perception of people around you change once you accepted yourself as a hijra?
Yeah, because when I accepted myself as a hijra, my many close friends departed from me, except my best friend Praveen and my so-called adopted son Deepak. And suddenly I was all alone in the mist. My gay circle never accepted me. Drag queens felt that I had become really cheap because then that class system, because they felt that hijras are always downtrodden and they belong to that strata of the society, which is not right. For example, me, 2007 I did my breast implants, but I never took hormones.
Did it have any negative impact on you or your family?
Life is both of happiness, joy, sorrow and pain. It has all the shades. So it's the way you live your life which gets you everything. And if there is no pain, there is no happiness. But then I feel happy about one thing, Sridhar, that I broke those norms in the society. At least I got the visibility of the only sexual minority which is visible. The visibles who were treated as invisibles have some visibility now in the society. Otherwise, 10 or 8 years down the line, how many hijras spoke on television? And I feel happy that I lived life on my terms and conditions, as I wanted to live. How many people have that right? How many people can live as they want to?
Okay, what about the hijra community? Do they have a problem with you coming out and speaking openly?
There was many times the problems. I had to pay fine in the community. People like, for example, I met Salman Rushdie. Then also they had problems. I spoke on interviews and blah blah. Then also they had problems. And mainly people who were jealous of me created problems. The head of the community never had a problem because they said she's never defaming us. She's fine, But my guru and other quite known people who didn't digest my fame, could not tolerate it. Then I say, you do it.
Lakshmi, tell us a little more about your work, about how it was when you started working with Dai Welfare Society.
I started working with Dai Welfare Society, so I was sworn in as a president. And after the second day of the presidentship, I went to attend Evert workshop. Actually, Dai was the first organization in Southeast Asia as far as Hijras are concerned and the transgender community is concerned. So it was very, there was a lot of ambitions to it, and I wanted to fulfill all the ambitions. But I had a lot of pressure on my head, so I could not give what was required, and that frustrated me. There was a period once I tried to even commit suicide, because it was so much of, I was always a free bird, and suddenly I was in a cage with everybody, just keeping note of every bit and parcel of my life, which was not, my parents never did it, so I could not take anything from anyone. And in 2006, I decided that is enough, and I left. I resigned from the primary membership to everything. I said goodbye to it and then I decided I should go back to my dancing and my glamour and everything. But Atharvan Iyer and Kiran More is no more, she's a Hijra. They all, Shaheen and other all staff, they forced me to start a new organization. So then the name came in question, so it was Astitva, existence. The fight of my existence came into, and we started it. But then it is always a conflict between Lakshmi and the organization. My capacity may be very good, and in those capacities of Lakshmi there are fallbacks. I don't like to type reports, I don't like to main records, but yeah, I'm good at advocacy, I'm good at doing things, if you give me a job, I'll just do it.
So, what was your next step?
I went to Toronto, my first exposure to the outer world, and I got passport. And in my passport it says I'm a female, I'm a transgender, I'm a eunuch. So 3 sexuality in 1 passport. So that is that, but I got it. Hello, I had it. And I went there. I saw the outer world, I saw the transgenders, I met people. It was good exposure. And I was glad when the Asia Pacific Sex Workers Network gave their seat and they appointed me on their seat. They voted me to be on the seat for the Civil Society Task Force, for the UN President's Office, for the high level meeting. It was a major exposure for me.
Wow. So, how was it being there as the only face of the Indian transgender community?
I was the Indian transgender woman on the Asia Pacific Sex Workers Network. But I talked about sex work issues, I talked about transgenders, I talked about MSM, I talked about every sexual minority, because it was for the first time in UN Civil Society Task Force there was a transgender woman. And I was totally decked in sari and my whole glamour, because then I thought it was not only me, it is whole country. I'm representing my country with the region. It was an honor. I still remember when I was going to the General Assembly and I just touched my Indian flag, It was a pride movement for me, that being a Hijra, I could make it till here, which I never ever thought in my life.
I know. Right from 5th grade as a child, you were already exploring your sexuality.
Yeah, so I was so fast in my life. Why I was fast? I never asked that question, or I want to ask, please, I am there and what is gone is gone. You can't go in the history and change things, what has happened. But, and I'm happy. I like, for example, Lakshmi. What I have my biological parents. I lost my father recently, he was such a big pillar for me. And then I have my friends, I have my brother, sister, they all are there. So I always say biological relations, you don't choose, you just get it. You have to live with them. There is no change. And other relations you choose. For example, I have my adopted son, Deepak Salvi. Like we are sitting in his house, like, you know. I have my daughter-in-law, and in few years I'll have my grandchildren. Like I have Sarah, my sister, one more sister who works with me also. Then I have at present I'm in a relationship with a boy, but I don't know how much I love him. Yeah, that's a question mark. Because for me, I loved a person in my life when I was in school days, and after that, I fell in a relationship. And for me, being with a man in a relationship was that the man should be honest. And I know man cannot be. I can't marry a man. Hello, this is not the society what we are living in. Of course, if the man has that much of courage and is for that, well and fine. But how would I trust that person? So it has always been a conflict between personal Lakshmi and Lakshmi.
Uh-huh. So you're saying there are two different people, Lakshmi and Lakshmi.
See, now I realize it. I still remember an incident when I lost my father and I could not cry in public. And I said, why? I should be crying. I went in my room when he was declared dead. I cried for 2 minutes and I stood rock solid because I had to organize his funeral. I cried for 2 minutes maximum when his body was given away to fire. And after that, I have cried back doors, but I didn't have the guts to even cry in front of my own children and people who are so near to me. Because then I feel, I don't know how to express that, because it is what, once you're a public figure and everything, people have so much of expectations from you. Next day, after my father's funeral, I put on my makeup. And that was the time, for the first time, I thought, is this the same Lakshmi? And I said, no. Now I have become dual.
Lakshmi as a Hijra activist is one aspect of you. The other is Lakshmi as a dancer, a performer.
See, I basically am a classical dancer trained. So first I used to be very strictly with classical, da 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 da, complete classical Bharatanatyam. Then I wanted to be a courtesan in my life, so I danced in bar. So 4 years, 11 months, I was a bar dancer, very famous. I never had sex with even a single customer in my bar. I was in Daskadam, so I was next to Salman Khan, and there were so much of controversies about me and him through in the television, I still remember. And then there was this one more show which I did, Sach Ka Samna, which was the most controversial show in India and in US and other out. It's telling the truth. So my episode was the longest, and for the first time, Indian viewer, Indian community saw a Hijra with a biological parents. And I did that show and brought my parents on the show because I wanted to change that concept that Hijras can stay with their biological parents. It's a matter of accepting your own child as the child is. So I did it as a part of my activism and my own responsibility. If I was there and if I have the ability to do it, why not?
All right. So what's your next step? How about politics?
I don't like politics.
What are your plans for the next 5 years?
Marry and settle? No, not me. In 5 years, what should I do? Now, recently we are working with the Planning Commission of India with the help of UNDP. So I want, good projects for Hijra community and transgender community with the Planning Commission of India. What is my aim in life is to get this community as normal as. Why? See, begging is not. It's not bad. If anybody wants to beg, fine. If anybody wants to do sex work, fine. But why shouldn't we have avenues created for people to explore many things? If you become a Hijra, the world doesn't end there. A new world starts. I want to explain to my community.
Okay, one last question. How are you going to deal with the Hijra community's disapproval of you being such a public figure and talking about so many issues?
See, now they don't talk much about me, the Hijra community, about, they say, okay, she talks, but she has never defamed us, which I always keep in mind. Whom shall I defame? My own community? No. I have always spoken about their rights, which the heads of the community appreciate. But only few lot, if they hate me, that is their problem. It hardly matters. Mother Teresa did so much of good work, but at times she was also accused of using the poverty stuff for her charity. So people like Mother Teresa can be also put to question. A living saint, Who am I? Where do I fall?
Wow, Lakshmi, it was fantastic talking to you for Project Bolo.